Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Federal agents are cracking down immigration court observers. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. 4 volunteers were briefly detained at the downtown San Diego Federal Building yesterday. The volunteers told KPBS reporter Gustavo Solis this is just the latest in a long series of increased intimidation tactics.
FPS.
Patrick Corrigan was standing in a hallway near an office where immigrants check in for their appointments with ICE. Federal agents have arrested several people during their check-ins, as KPBS has previously reported. So Corrigan likes to go and offer support to anyone going through the process. This time, a federal agent approached.
And he said, you can't be here, there's no loitering, and you need to leave if you don't have business here.
Corrigan and other volunteers say that federal agents have slowly restricted their access to certain parts of the building over the last year. Father Scott Santa Rosa is the pastor of Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish. He also runs Faith, the program Corrigan volunteers for.
We hardly are allowed into the courtrooms anymore. We're not allowed to wait with people in the ICE waiting room, and we're not allowed to wait with people in the ISAP waiting room. So little by little, our ability to accompany people is really being restricted, and this is the most formally it has been restricted when they threatened a citation.
At the federal building, the agent threatened Corrigan with a loitering citation, but he stood his ground, expecting to get detained.
I think our presence annoys them, but also I said, hey, I'm just praying. That's not okay. It's not okay to pray a rosary in a federal building.
Agents from Federal Protective Services, a sub-agency of DHS, issued citations to Corrigan and 3 other volunteers. Faith plans to fight the citation. Santa Rosa wants a federal judge to determine whether they're allowed to continue their work.
We don't feel like we are loitering. We feel like we have a very definite purpose there, which is to provide a positive presence for people.
Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
The Department of Homeland Security ignored questions from KPBS about the volunteers. Instead, the Federal Protective Service said in a statement obstructing access in a federal building is a crime. Meanwhile, San Diego County's Civil Liberties Enforcement and Accountability Rules, or CLEAR ordinance, went into effect today. It requires federal immigration agents to present a judicial warrant or court order before entering non-public areas of county properties. The county emphasized that the ordinance applies specifically to immigration enforcement and does not interfere with emergency operations or lawful cooperation on criminal matters.
We are still fairly warm out there tonight. Again, a warmer night than we would typically experience in late February. But the end of the significant warmth is in view. So we're going to be into the 50s for lows tonight. Oceanside may drop to the upper 40s, Campo 47, but most of us in the 50s. And the warmth still wins out on Saturday, but we're going to begin to step away from this recent round of record-challenging heat and step back into more typical weather for early March. We're going to take you there coming up.
Relief could be on the horizon for water ratepayers. KPBS reporter John Carroll has more on when we might see lower bills and why.
Over the last couple of decades, local water agencies, led by the San Diego County Water Authority, have put a lot of effort and a great deal of money into making sure we have a safe, resilient, reliable supply. A new agreement approved by the Water Authority Board on Thursday could lead to local ratepayers getting some of those investment dollars back. Water Authority General Manager Dan Denham's description of the agreement tells you how important he thinks it is.
I think our board and our region in general took a monumental step towards something that I think will potentially change the Southwest and how we manage water.
The agreement clears the way for exploration of an interstate water transfer and exchange program that could see the Water Authority selling a lot of our extra water to other areas in Southern California and across the Southwest that are facing challenging situations with the Colorado River. 40 million people in the Southwest depend on the Colorado for at least some of their water. The U.S. Geological Survey says the river's flow has dropped by about 20% since 2000 due to a climate-driven mega drought and increased evaporation. San Diego has done an impressive job conserving water over those years, but the need has grown in other places across the Southwest, growing cities like Las Vegas and Phoenix.
The congeniality amongst the agencies on the Colorado River Board is outstanding. We all work very well together. We realize that we are all at the end of the proverbial pipeline.
Water Authority Board member Jim Medaffer is San Diego's representative on the Colorado River Board. He says the new agreement should be an easy sell to other water agencies in and outside of Southern California, allowing them to buy our extra water, a win-win made possible by huge investments like the Carlsbad desalination plant.
Water that's produced at the desal plant, maybe that could go to use in Arizona or in Nevada. And so it's conceptually being explored.
All those agencies, along with the federal government, would have to approve the interagency agreements. But Dan Denham says if they do, water sales could begin later this year, and he says local ratepayers could see relief as early as 2027. John Carroll, KPBS News.
New data released today on measles cases shows an already concerning trend is getting worse. Mandy Gaither has a look at the latest numbers.
As of Thursday in the U.S., more than 1,100 confirmed measles cases have now been reported in 27 states in just the first 2 months of 2026. That's already 6 times more than is typically expected for an entire year.
Doctors are afraid of measles. Measles is incredibly scary in the sense that it is so contagious.
With spring break travel on the horizon, experts fear further spread of this highly contagious virus. Most of the confirmed cases this year are in those ages 5 to 19, with children under 5 being the age group with the next highest number of cases. The CDC says 92% of those measles infections were in those who were unvaccinated or their vaccination status was unknown.
At first, it can look like a cold. You can get a fever and a cough, red eyes, runny nose. But as you get more sick, 1 in 4 individuals, children who get measles, will end up hospitalized.
Dr. Sarah Nozel with the American Academy of Family Physicians says people exposed to measles can still catch the extremely contagious virus even if they're fully vaccinated against the disease. However, she says getting both doses of the vaccine significantly lowers risk of being infected. And if you do get sick, she says the illness isn't likely to be as severe as it could be in an unvaccinated person.
It's so critical that you get it because measles is actually so much more contagious than flu or COVID.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
President Trump signed an executive order this month to protect the national supply of a controversial weed killer. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has suggested that exposure to the chemicals can lead to health issues. But what does the science say? Maribel Gonzalez breaks it down.
Most of the population has been exposed to glyphosate. That is according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That is because it is in so many of the foods that we consume, from products like whole wheat bread to popcorn and even in drinking water. Glyphosate is at the center of debate after President Donald Trump signed an executive order to protect the national supply of the herbicide, while medical experts urge caution over its use.
It is applied to corn, to soybeans, to a whole range of crops that make their way into foods that Americans eat.
Dr. Philip Landrigan is a pediatrician and a professor at Boston College. He says children can be the most vulnerable.
Glyphosate is a known hazard to public health, and as a pediatrician, it really concerns me to see this chemical coming through in foods like corn that make their way into breakfast cereals.
In 2015, the World Health Organization classified glyphosate as a probable carcinogen. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the European Union's Food Safety Authority have not found a link to cancer. Still, some, like Moms Across America, a nonprofit that largely supports the administration's health agenda, are advocating for glyphosate bans.
Seeing the science behind glyphosate pointing to the direction that it should be banned, at least restricted.
Experts say you can limit exposure, both in the foods you eat.
People who eat a mainly organic diet have 90% lower levels of pesticide chemicals in their bodies.
And at home.
I would much rather have a few dandelions or other weeds in my yard than expose my child to a chemical that has the probability of causing cancer.
To limit exposure, experts also recommend buying produce locally and washing it thoroughly before using. Reporting in Los Angeles, I'm Maribel Gonzalez.
San Diego District Attorney Summer Stephan is disputing a story KPBS reported this month on racial disparities and special charges that can lead to life without parole. KPBS's story relied on a data analysis from a researcher who attributed cases to DAs based on disposition date. The DA's office provided an analysis that attributed cases to DAs based on charging date. It showed no racial disparity in making these special charges against black and white defendants when looking only at multiple murder cases during DA Stephan's tenure. KPBS has clarified the story to include more detail about the analysis and the data it used. Go to kpbs.org to learn more.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, Iran and the U.S. sit on the brink of war after another round of negotiations. That's at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
The University of California, San Diego says it's cutting ties with wellness guru Deepak Chopra. This comes after the Epstein files revealed Chopra and Epstein exchanged hundreds of messages. In a statement, the university called Chopra's association with Epstein regrettable. His affiliation with UC San Diego will end in June. Chopra is currently a voluntary clinical professor at the university. Earlier this month, Chopra stated on social media that he was never involved in any criminal conduct related to Epstein. San Marcos community members are celebrating after the school board changed course on a plan to lay off librarians. KPBS education reporter Katie Anastas says district leaders warn budget cuts are still coming.
Students, parents, and school staff packed Thursday night's meeting of the San Marcos Unified School Board. They spoke against proposed cuts to elementary school librarian positions.
Mrs. Kennedy doesn't just check out books. She helps us find the right book when we don't even know what we're looking for. She makes reading fun.
The district faces a $10 to $11 million deficit in next year's budget. District administrators had proposed a series of layoffs to save about $2 million. The district's 10 elementary school librarians would have had their hours cut in half and lost their benefits.
I can't support my family on 3.75 hours a day and no health insurance. So unfortunately, I would have had to seek employment elsewhere, which was absolutely heartbreaking, the prospect of that.
The board removed the librarian positions from a list of staff reductions. That means they'll keep their full-time jobs for at least one more year.
To be clear, I fully recognize that budget reductions are necessary and that additional difficult decisions will lie ahead. They will. We cannot do this without cutting staff. And we have heard, I want you guys to understand that when we get the emails, we see the signs. It's an incredibly difficult position because we do not want to cut our librarians, and we need to keep our district in business.
Districts throughout San Diego County are seeing their student enrollment shrink as people have fewer kids. Fewer students means less funding. That's because state funding is largely based on attendance. And as revenue drops, expenses are rising. Utilities, insurance, and health benefits are all costing districts more money at a time when they're bringing less in. District leaders say state funding isn't keeping up with those rising costs.
The room that you see full here tonight, what's playing out here is playing out in school districts all up and down this state. And that's very, very important to recognize. And I hope that the folks who are legislating and making some of these decisions are taking note of this.
The board did approve layoff notices for about 17 teachers, social workers, and counselors. Still, district leaders expect to dip into savings to cover this year's budget gap. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
If you're in the market to buy a home, there's some good news. The National Association of Realtors predicts we'll see more homes listed for sale this spring than in previous years. Jen Sullivan explains what buyers can expect.
It's been a slow start of the year for the housing market. Existing home sales dipped in January, but as the spring market begins, the National Association of Realtors expects sales to pick up.
More buyers coming into the market, more sellers trying to get into the market, so much more robust activity during the spring buying season.
Lawrence Yoon with the National Association of Realtors says the last few years have been tough for potential buyers because fewer homes were coming on the market and there were a lot of interested buyers. That drove up prices and created bidding wars. But he predicts that will start to shift.
We'll see more supply on the market.
Prices, though, have yet to come down. Last month, the median existing home sale price was just under $397,000, according to the NAR. And Yoon doesn't expect those numbers to come down anytime soon. But mortgage rates have come down, and he says that will help make homes more affordable. As of last week, the average 30-year fixed-rate mortgage was 6.01%, according to Freddie Mac. A year ago, it was 6.85%. And there's other good news.
In many markets, people's income is beginning to outpace home price growth, so that is also helping on the affordability.
There is some concern that the drop in mortgage rates could cause a surge in potential buyers flooding the market. That's why Yoon says it's important to make sure you're in a good position to make a competitive offer when you do find the right home.
It's a long process to be prepared, get the mortgage applications corrected, trying to find the right home, so it's a multi-month process.
Yoon recommends having enough cash to make a 3 to 20% down payment, get pre-approved for a mortgage, and make sure your credit score is good. The better the score, the lower your mortgage rate will be. For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
Phil Unit has been curator of birds and small mammals at the San Diego Natural History Museum for almost 4 decades. Today, he retires. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando looks back on his career and his legacy.
Phil Unit's passion for birds began when he was a teenager.
I took up an interest in birds because they were accessible. You could see them and hear them without having to use expensive instrumentation.
As curator of birds and small mammals at the Nat, he works primarily with specimens.
See the label here, 10 miles east of Holtville. December 22, 1923. So this is over 100 years old now.
But he's in his element out in the field, studying and even communicating with his beloved birds. And trying to understand the effects of urbanization on native plants and animals.
Understanding how our environment has changed makes you very intimate with all the forces that degrade our environment and that call for conservation. Each time a species goes extinct or, say is extirpated from California or San Diego County, it's impossible or almost impossible to go back. How far we can push, who can answer that? That is an experiment that we run, and if we fail, then there's no going back.
Unit began working at the Nat in 1988 as a part-time assistant before becoming the full-time manager of a collection spanning 150 years and boasting 52,000 birds and 26,000 small mammals.
Insofar as it's physically possible, every bone gets a catalog number on it. These are bird bones that came out of PVC pipes that had been used to mark mine claims in the Mojave Desert. The birds went into those pipes and got stuck. So what birds are susceptible to this kind of mortality, and how can it be averted?
UNIT was able to identify what birds were dying in the pipes by comparing the bones to those already in the collection.
And so thinking of my legacy here, the building up the skeleton collection and then to have it used like this for something that could benefit bird conservation is very gratifying.
Unlike many in his field, UNIT is not attracted to the more flamboyant birds.
I confess I get most excited over little drab birds. So can I show you a little gray bird?
Yeah. Like the gray vireo, whose numbers have been dwindling in the U.S.
Of course, the question is, oh, it's just another little gray bird. But it's not the bird's responsibility to make themselves easy for us to identify and exciting for us to look at.
UNIT is proud of the collection and how it can prove useful beyond the museum.
The animal, even if it goes extinct, the skeleton is not only preserved here, but preserved digitally so that the entire world can use and understand it.
Preparing those specimens has been a key part of his job.
One thing that's very important to me is that we maintain the skills to prepare these specimens because it's an art form that's not easy to master. One thing that's been very gratifying through my career is that all of our science staff has maintained a commitment to the value of the collection and the use of the collection and the use of the collections in understanding environmental change.
That's been a unifying theme of his career, which will close a chapter on Saturday when UNIT retires from the Nat. But he says he won't be missing anything.
Because I'm not going anywhere. My commitment to the museum and the collection continues through my life and beyond my lifetime, really.
Indeed, because the specimens UNIT has preserved in his tenure as curator will be used by generations to come in ways no one can yet imagine. And that's an amazing legacy. Beth Agamondo, KPBS News.
Well, we've had a very warm stretch here, record highs in some parts of the area over the past 2 afternoons. The record warmth will back off. We're still going to be warm this weekend, but cooler air is marching back in. Sunday, you're going to feel a little more relief from the warmth, and then into early next week as March really takes over. It'll feel more like early March out there. 57 degrees tonight for your low, partly cloudy, still pretty warm out there. And the warmth winds locally on Saturday, the rain way up to the north in Northern California, northern parts of Nevada, north of Interstate 80. So we're dealing with spring-like warmth here locally, and we're going to be dealing with highs back into the upper 70s and 80s for a lot of us, but some, like El Cajon and to no surprise, Borrego Springs, will be in the 90s in some of the warmest areas, the hot spots. Ramona, 88. Escondido, 86. San Diego will be around 78 degrees. So very warm out there. Still on Saturday, and this ridge is still present. There is a wildfire risk associated with the dryness and the breeze that is breaking out each afternoon in some areas, so just be aware of that. Not a significant wildfire risk, but it is a wildfire risk nonetheless. Sunday, you begin to notice a little bit more fragmented moisture in areas of showers of rain and some mountain snow up to the north, and that's kind of a sign that the trough is beginning to get a little closer. It's never really setting in, but the ridge is flattening, and that's going to take the worst of the heat away from us with, again, a downward trend. Will be a little more seasonable on Monday. Still warm in the deserts in the interior, but more like typical early March weather. So let's get into the 5-day forecast here. For the coast, we go from 77 Saturday, beautiful weather Sunday, to 66 Monday, and again, mid to upper 60s on Wednesday with intermittent clouds. Inland areas, we're going to go from 88 on a very warm Saturday back to 70 on Monday, and we'll hover in the low 70s Tuesday and Wednesday, staying dry. In the mountains, we're going from the mid-60s, warm for the mountains in late February, to the mid-40s on Tuesday, and maybe a few degrees of recovery into Wednesday. And in the deserts here, we're in the 90s, mid-90s in Borrego Springs, 95 on Saturday, back to 80 Monday, and we're going to hover around 80 plus a degree or so into Wednesday with a good deal of sunshine. So again, very warm to start. Temperatures flattening, stabilizing into early next week. I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
If you've driven on the 5 freeway in Carlsbad lately, you've probably noticed that the flower fields are in bloom. KPBS North County reporter Alexander Nguyen got a sneak peek before the official opening this Sunday.
It might be winter elsewhere in the country, but in San Diego, signs of spring are already here. The giant Tecolote ranunculus are in bloom.
That's a great showing on opening day.
The flowers come in 13 shades, from white, pink, and red to yellow and orange. 80 million flowers are expected to bloom across the 55-acre farm over the 10 weeks that it's open to the public.
I would say right now we have about a third of our field in bloom.
Taylor Moss is the marketing and operations manager for the flower fields. She says that's more than in previous year's opening day. And more flowers are in bloom this opening day because of the warm, sunny winter we've been having.
That sun and extra warmth allowed our fields to germinate faster, which resulted in the big blooms that you see behind me. So the sun is our friend on that case.
And there are more than just flowers at the Carlsbad Ranch. New this year is the expanded butterfly encounter. The 1,000 square foot enclosure was built from the ground up.
So bigger, bolder, better.
Plus a 5K where participants get to run around the entire flower fields before they open on March 15th.
It's St. Patrick's Day theme. And, you know, we have some wellness classes that we've never done before. Meditation, yoga, sound bath. We're really excited.
And what do the flower fields do with those 80 million flowers? Moss says they're really just for the public to enjoy.
We actually let the flowers fully maturate and die. We mow them down and get the bulbs underneath, and we sell those all around the United States so you can grow flower fields ranunculus at home.
The flower fields are open from March 1st through Mother's Day weekend. In Carlsbad, Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
Well, those flowers are beautiful, and we're lucky to have them. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Enjoy your evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.